Good evening and welcome for another fine edition of the Planning Commission. It is Monday, April the 11th, 2022. It's 6:30, so I'm calling to order our Planning Commission. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and via Zoom. As chair, I'll be leading the Planning Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when invited throughout the meeting. Members of the public can join via Zoom or by calling in. If attendees experience audio problems, we suggest you try leaving the meeting and then rejoin. That fixes the issue. Additional instructions on how to participate and a whole lot more information is located at the Burnsville website. That's burnsvillemn.gov at the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is also being viewed on BCTV and on the city's website. If you're unable to participate this evening and would like to submit public testimony, I encourage you email your comments to city staff or mail your comments directly to City Hall. You may participate in the meeting tonight online by going to zoom.us/join, type in meeting ID 995-7627-4383. Once you are logged into the meeting, please use the chat feature to tell the moderator which item you would like to speak to. You may also call into the meeting by dialing 651-372-8299, again, using that same meeting ID, 995-7627-4383. And for each public hearing, I will open up a time when the callers may speak to an item, and we'll give you more instructions when that time comes. Again, all this information is on the city website at burnsvillemn.gov in the public meeting calendar. With that, I am going to move on to the agenda. Commissioners, any changes to the agenda as you've seen them? None? Staff?
No changes.
No changes. With that, I would take a motion for the agenda for tonight's meeting. Commissioner Watt?
I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
All right, is a motion made by Commissioner Watt. Do I have a second? Commissioner Wallace?
I'll second.
It was close. A second by Commissioner Wallace. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes. We had, our last meeting was March 14th. The minutes were included in your packets. Did you read through them? Did you see changes to the meeting minutes? Commissioners? Seeing none? Staff?
None from staff.
Good deal. All right, I will take a motion. Commissioner Braddock?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Braddock makes a motion to approve the minutes. Any second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Timmerman. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And no one opposes, I'm assuming? That moves forward. Third item on the agenda is a public hearing for the application from Vincent Development LLC for development staged planned unit development to construct a 4-story, 55-plus age-restricted apartment building with up to 130 units, allow grading within steep slopes, retaining walls over 8 feet tall, shoreland CUP for impervious surface coverage, and shoreland variances for building height at 14545 Grand Avenue South, which is just southwest of the Rise on Grand Apartments, and I believe Kevin Shea is here, so I apologize. Here to speak on this issue. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, tonight we have a, as stated, public hearing for Vincent Development LLC for a PUD development plan for a 128-unit, 55H plus restricted apartment building, along with the shoreline CUP to allow impervious surface to exceed the 30% allowed up to 50% with the CUP. A shoreline variance to allow a building height of 78 feet versus the 35-foot maximum within the shoreline. And then a CUP, or in this case a PUD, to allow retaining walls within the side yard to exceed 8 feet in height. And then the same CUP with, in this case, a PUD to allow grading within small areas of the steep slopes exceeding 40% slopes. The site location is 14545 Grand Avenue South, as shown on the image. The site size is a gross size of 14.5 acres with the development on 4.3 net acres, with the remaining being the Twin Lakes Pond and associated areas, open space areas adjacent to it. The zoning is already mixed PUD for that mixed use, with the PUD for the first and second edition for Twin Lakes, and this is the following third edition, or third phase, I should say. It does front on Grand Avenue along the west lot line. It is currently undeveloped with just natural grass areas and trees on the site. The restrictions applicable to the site is North Twin Lake and the shoreline area that it regulations it provides, the regional pond, steep slopes. There's some drainage and utility easements and a utility access road. Shown on the left is the grading plan, and on the left is the existing conditions, and the right is the existing conditions with the slope analysis shown on it. So you'll note there's quite a lot of grade change on the site, ranging from a high point in the around 980 and then dropping down some 50 feet. So the green you'll see is the 12 to 18% slopes, and then the 18 to 40% slopes are shown in the yellow, with a small portion shown as 40% slopes, greater than 40%, shown in red on the right image. And there will be impacts to that as part of this development. Here's shown the proposed site plan. You'll note first thing kind of called out is the proposed monument sign. So the development does access off of Grand Avenue with a single access on the south side of the frontage. Along that frontage on the south side of the access is a proposed monument sign. And you'll see that the proposed monument sign in the upper left shows the depiction of what it will look like. And that will come in with a sign permit upon them moving forward with the sign at that time. Also to note that this is the third phase, so this is the final phase of the development for Twin Lakes. And with the access coming in, the first turnoff you see is the entrance to the underground parking on the site plan, and then it progresses through to the parking in the courtyard area for the parking, and then the building then surrounds that courtyard area. So as noted, the building is 78 feet in height along the entirety of the building, just due to the slopes and the way the building is structured. And then because of the layout of the site and the 4.3 acres being used versus the 14, the surface, impervious surface, is requesting the CUP to go above the 30%. The parking, they are required 228 stalls of parking. They are proposing 253, with 75 of them being surface parking, and then 178 underground parking, and that's on 2 levels of underground. So there's 1 full level and then 1 half level of underground. So with this, it is the development stage PUD, so there are asking for some deviations, and there are some benefits with that PUD. So some of the deviations, I guess, go through first, is that it exceeds the minimum requirements for the mixed zone standards for the lot size. So the density transfer is pretty common when you have a lot of this size to move the density around to preserve open space. So as part of that, they do include the 10 acres of preserved open space. So staff is supportive of the lot area with that, density transfer. And there's a deviation to allow fewer trees than required, with 127 required and 110 proposed, and the same for shrubs, with 935 required and 819 proposed. With this, the applicant did provide a variety of landscaping. There is a large natural open space area on the site with existing mature trees to the east and then around the lake. So this proposal does exceed the number of overstory and ornamental trees given the whole site, so staff is supportive of the PUD deviation. Some of the benefits with this development is that the proposed trees are a 1/2 inch larger caliper than is required, so they're 2.5 inches instead of 2 inch for the deciduous ornamental trees. They are proposing more overstory than the ordinance standard, so the 57 versus 32 overstory trees. They do have more overall green space, with 84% of their site being green space. And then the parking area green space exceeds by 6.9 to the 3%, so 3.9% increase on the parking area green space. And then the building perimeter landscape exceeds the ordinance as well. With this, there's also the variance consideration for the shoreline building height. That's to allow a 78-foot high building versus the 35-foot. I just highlighted on here some of the pieces from the staff report. That staff does support this variance because the shoreline district standards limit building height to a standard that's not feasible for a apartment building with the 35-foot height, so that's why the request is for the 78. And the apartment building was approved as part of the original PUD concept plan review request. So the applicant did submit a variance guideline policy, which is attached to the packet, and they indicated their responses to each of the variance criteria, with 11 being positive, 3 being negative, and 5 are not applicable in this case, 19 factors. So staff does find that the proposal is considered reasonable based on the staff comments in the packet. As far as tree preservation, so as I noted before, the site is pretty heavily wooded on basically everywhere but the frontage. And so the applicant is proposing to remove a majority of those trees to make way for the apartment building and the associated improvements. With that, they have to do the replacement or pay the woodland replacement fee. So with that, excuse me, there is a credit from a previous phase of the development. So they are getting credited some from the previous phase, but with this removals, they are still required to pay $93,020 in woodland replacement to offset the trees that are being removed in excess of what's allowed. Oh, and on the image, everything shown with the kind of light red is the removals. So it's quite a lot of the site there. The next image here is the grading and erosion control plan for the site. So you'll see quite a lot of line work on this one just because there's quite a lot of grade on the site. Moves away, so they do have, with the apartment building and the parking, they're showing, I believe it's 4 ponds. So you can kind of see those in various spots. One's in the northeast, southeast, west, and south sides of the lot, roughly. And this just indicates kind of all the grade change that's happening on the site after they grade. You'll notice some slopes are steeper as they head down. As far as the private utilities, this just shows all the connections into the building for sewer and water connections. And then the consultant engineer is present tonight to answer any specific questions on utilities. But this just shows those connections in. They all kind of come in from the access from Grand Avenue. Shown here is 2 images for the elevations. The west side, so that'd be what you come as you're driving up Grand Ave, if that's what you'd see. And then the southeast elevation, which kind of, if you're looking at it, that's kind of looking into the courtyard. So the exterior materials, they are proposing to use cultured stone on the base of the building, kind of wrapping the entire building. That's then combined with metal siding or painted LP siding. And then they incorporate metal trim and windows throughout. And then the combination of that with the color variety and the breakups horizontally and vertically give the building its look. So you'll see it's a flat roof for the majority of the building, with a couple areas having some pitched or alternate roof styles. You'll note just the pitched roof's kind of on one corner, and then they have a smaller kind of like a hipped lower roof, and that's on the very east side, and it's overlooking, they have a dining common area, and that overlooks the Twin Lakes natural open space area. You kind of see here too how the building height comes into play. So it's 78 feet on the east or the right side of the screen. On the south elevation, it's not as tall for the rest of the building, but just where the grade moves down, the building gets a little taller over there. So these are the perspectives shown from the same angles as those elevations. So this is from the west. So you'll see they've got, from the west, you can kind of, it's a longer building face, and then the wing off of it is kind of hidden from Grand Ave unless you're coming from the south. And then this is the view from the southeast. This is from phase 2 is the twin homes. The rendering just shows the streets and kind of the parking areas without the homes. But that's what the view into and up to the building through the courtyard would be from those twin home locations. It's a little bit hard to read the text within this, but this is the floor plan for the building. This is the first floor. All the stories above it, 2, 3, 4, all kind of match this or mirror this, just without some of the common areas for the fitness, the community room, some of the mechanical, electrical areas aren't present all the way up through the floors. but this kind of shows how the units break down through the wing. And then to mirror that, this is the first level of parking, just kind of with the entrance on the right hand of the image, and then so you drive in and go out that way. The second level of parking is just the extension off of the flat part of the building. So it's on the image, it'd be the top hook is where the second level down is, and then back up to get out. For the landscape plan, this is their proposed landscape plan. It shows the site kind of maxed out with landscaping. They have a variety of trees proposed. Some of the examples would be like a Sienna Glen maple, swamp white oak, bur oak, quite a variety of those, along with conifers and ornamental trees. And then they are proposing to seed any other open areas to establish the green space between the trees. So staff recommends the Planning Commission recommended the City Council approval of the development stage PUD for the 4-story 55+ age-restricted apartment building with up to 130 units, to allow retaining walls exceeding 8 feet in height in the side yard, allow grading within steep slopes, the shoreline CUP for impervious surface coverage to exceed 30%, and the shoreline variance for the 78-foot building height to exceed the 35-foot standard, with the conditions included in the staff report. And then the applicant did provide a video showing the building that I'm gonna place, and it's about a minute long. Just it highlights kind of the site as a whole. And then one thing I'd like to, that I passed over a little bit when I was looking through the site plan, just to note there is, on the east side, you'll notice the east part is not as developed, and it's got the existing city utility lines with an easement over it. The city staff and the engineering staff is working with the developer and landowner to work through some of issues with access through there, and is it public, is it private, and what that space looks like for the future. So I just wanted to note that as well. With that, I will stand for any questions you have for city staff. And then the applicant, while not present physically here, I believe is on the Zoom call to answer any questions from the development side.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Appreciate the video. I think we should require that every time. It's pretty, it's good. It's good to get a very overview like that. So with that, I'm going to turn over to commissioners. We have Mr. Shea is available, or we have Ms. Lloyd with the engineering department here to answer our questions. Any questions from commissioners for city staff? Commissioner Timmerman.
Mr. Shea, nice presentation, thank you. Welcome to the Planning Commission.
Thanks.
Hope we see a bit more of you. You did a nice job. So the question that I have is, well, there's a couple, but it's related to the 55+ age restriction. Is that built into this agreement with the city? We've seen a number of projects where we've heard 55+, and then it ends up being developed and it ends up being rented out at market rate. I'll let you answer that, and then I'll ask my other question.
Mm-hmm. So the development will be market rate from the start, so that'll still be in play even though it's 55+. And then the developer at the neighborhood meeting at least indicated that the 55+ would be something they'd look to carry forward with no end in sight. And the way the state or the permitting works for it, that once you regress from a 55 plus to a market rate with no age restriction, you can't go back. So when they make that change, that would be essentially moving one way and you can't come back. So they're looking to keep that. And then I would ask the applicant if they have any plans otherwise, but that was what they presented to the neighborhood meeting.
Okay, and then my follow-up to that, and these can all go to the applicant as well, but, the community space that you talked about, kind of on the southeast corner, overlooking the lakes, you mentioned that's kind of a community dining area. Is that intended to be, I guess, a space that is attractive to that 55-plus type community? And further, is there any type of medical on site?
As far as the first part of your question, all of their community spaces are kind of oriented towards the 55-plus community and the active, empty nesters to have community spaces. The rooftop, I think they mentioned having, fire pits or grills or things to, eat out, bring food, keep active with that. As far as the second part of your question, what was the second part again?
If there's any medical services on site?
That I can't give an answer to because I don't know. That'd have to be directed to the applicant.
All right, any other questions, commissioners? I was curious on, you talked a little bit about the path that goes in between things there. Is that what we're looking to, whether that's going to be public or not? Is it?
Yeah, there's a discussion right now between city engineering staff and the developer and the landowner on what form that takes, whether, because the city has access through there to do maintenance on the stormwater pond, or the regional pond, I guess, that's in that area, and just kind of whether that's a public to let the city's maintenance staff use it, or public in more, walkability, things like that, or if it doesn't take that quite a shape. So I think that's still an ongoing discussion, and I guess I'd direct it to city engineering staff to elaborate on that.
Well, Ms. Lloyd?
Yes, good evening, commissioners. That is an access route, not currently paved, not planned to be paved, and it is not public property. So it is just for this development for an access route for maintenance.
It looked like there was a stormwater sewer pipe that came off the original building right in that area. Does that cause any issues there or no?
No, it should not. I'm sure that there's an easement for that public utility.
Okay. Good deal. Again, any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Terriman, you have a question?
I had one question that came up from the video, and I'm sure it's just because it's a video rendering, but it looked like the parking lot, you could drive right down the hill. I'm assuming there's some sort of retaining wall at that parking lot?
I believe there's just in the landscaping and just a natural buffer more so to prevent you from, in this case, almost driving off a cliff.
Literally.
Commissioners, there are retaining walls that I believe in some cases are over 20 feet, and there will be fencing and guardrail along that as well. So, yeah, hopefully nobody goes careening over the edge.
Can you point out where those retaining walls would be at?
Let's see.
They're
They're on the south side of the, let's say the drive aisle, kind of on the south side of the property. And then, I think, Deb, don't they go to the west too?
yes.
Down there, yeah. I think they're indicated on this, and it's more of like the heavy, dark, bolded black line.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. And it's just direct drop off there. I slopes down right into that area, and I'm assuming that's a great spot for the parking garage, but it's not going to be a great sledding hill or anything like that. It's just going to be a straight drop. Okay. Just trying to think of the kids. But it's the 55 plus, so I guess that doesn't work at all. Grandkids, there we go. Commissioner Braddock.
Thank you. I believe this is for Ms. Lloyd, but there's a beautiful landscaping plan. Is there any consideration for low-impact development techniques, or is that?
That's a great question, Commissioner. I'd have to look back at the landscaping plan to see what balance there is of that low impact. So we can get back to you on that if you'd like.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? It looks like we have Aaron Messiah, I'm going with that as the pronunciation, from Vincent, and Brian Frank online, and I would love to have them come speak to us before we open up the public hearing. How did I do on your name?
It's actually pronounced Machi.
Machi, I was so close, so close.
But don't worry, nobody's ever really got it right unless they've known with the same last name, so.
Good deal.
I've been used to that my whole life. Yeah, so my name's Aaron Machi, and I am with Vincent Development. I apologize for not being there in person tonight. Unfortunately, I'm in a quarantine right now, so I'm doing this from my home office, but anyway, just to quickly answer, I guess, the questions regarding the 55 plus. So this is a market rate building, and it is designed to be a 55 plus age restricted. Basically, so what that means is that we charge market rents. There's no subsidized rents or anything like that. You need to be 55 or older to rent in this building. But there's no services provided. This isn't independent living or assisted living or anything like that. I mean, this is strictly active adult. It's catered to, I would say, the older adults that are looking for a different kind of lifestyle. Maybe they're wintering and they want to have maintenance-free living or things like that. And we see that more often now, especially in Minnesota, where people are getting away from the cold weather, which never seems to end. But what we've found is that typically the average age in a building like this is usually somebody in their late 60s or early 70s. So 55 doesn't really apply, but that's kind of the cutoff age, right, for what's considered elderly now. And so that's why we have that 55 plus designation on there. But that to the other question about, you know, it's our intention, we have every intention of marketing this as an age-restricted building. We've designed it as such. We don't have any studio apartments. We have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 2-bedroom dens, and much bigger units than you would see in a typical market rate building, so it wouldn't really lend itself to not have it be an age-restricted. People that are looking to move into this product are moving from their homes, and so they're trying to replace that. Which is why we have a really nice amenity package. I mean, we have, you know, in-unit laundry rooms. We have decks. There'll be granite countertops, tile backsplash, custom cabinets, hardwood flooring, premium appliance package, that sort of thing. The rooftop sky lounge that you saw there, overlooking the Twin Lakes area, it's really just an outdoor patio. There'll be fireplaces. There'll be a game room attached to that. Just a gathering space for the residents, and we wanted to take advantage of the views that we would have out over that lake. I guess with that, if you guys have any other questions, I'm here. Brian is with Sambatech and did all the engineering for us on this project. They did a lot of the engineering for the whole PUD, but we're excited. We've been really happy working with the city and would like to get this moving forward. I believe right now the current plan would be to start construction in August. But yeah, with that, any other questions?
It looks like a very beautiful property, by the way, all 3 of them. You've done a really good job thus far, so we appreciate you coming to Burnsville. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Machi? Mr. Timmerman?
I just have a comment. I think that, you know, the builders that you've been using obviously are efficient. They're getting the products put up, you know, in a timely fashion. It's nice to see some of the homes being marketed and filled now, and so it's nice to just see progress and more movement towards completion. So I'm pleased with the progress that we're seeing.
Any other commissioners? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Machi, for joining us and for your explanation. It really does help. Appreciate that. This is a public hearing, and I would like to open up the public hearing at 7 o'clock. If you are here to speak on this issue, the lectern is available, and anybody online via Zoom or on the phone can let the moderator know whether they're willing or want to speak to this issue. You can use the chat feature if you're on Zoom, or if you're on the phone, you can dial #6 and speak with the moderator. I'm not seeing a wild rush to the podium, and I am getting from Mr. Golden that we don't have anybody on Zoom. Thus, I am going to close the public hearing at,
You can round up.
I'll round up to 7:01. That's what my watch says. Then I'm going to turn it back over to the commissioners for any discussion on this application. Commissioner Watt?
Was I right in understanding this is part of, like, phase 3 of a 3-part project? And phase 1 was the rise on Grand, and phase 2 are the twin home, or the townhomes that are, okay,
Yes, that's correct.
okay. Thank you.
I remember correctly, the townhomes came before us because the roof lines, wasn't it the separation there?
That also needed, they had concept approval similar to this,
Yeah.
but then they needed development stage approval. And there were a number, because they, that part of the property actually abutted North Twin Lake. There were a number of conditional use permits and variances
right.
to shoreland regulations for that,
Okay.
that we needed to process.
Anybody have any questions on the deviations or anything along those lines that causes pause or anything along those lines? I don't think I have any either, so if anyone wants to make a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion's been made by Commissioner Timmerman. Do I have a second? Commissioner Braddock?
Motion to approve.
Second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes. It will be on the consent agenda at the next city council meeting, which usually I look at my calendar ahead of time.
April 19th.
Thank you, Sarah. April 19th, 5:30 in these very chambers. We'll move on to our next agenda item, and that is a public hearing for the application of Ivy Brook Parking LLC for rezoning from B4 Highway Commercial District to B4 PUD. Highway Commercial District / planned approvals for the site. Concept and development stage planned unit development for an outdoor storage lot and preliminary and final plat of Ivy Brook Parking West to combine the 3 existing parcels into one big lot and expand their outdoor storage use and parking of commercial vehicles located at 3509 Highway 13 West. Sarah Madden, one of our city planners, is here to speak on this issue. Ms. Madden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So as stated, there are a number of land use clearances associated with this application that's before us this evening. You may recognize it as similar to one that we looked at just down the road on Highway 13 a few weeks ago by the same applicant group. So that plat in that case was platted as the Ivy Brook Parking East, and this would be their west application for a similar use for the outdoor storage of commercial vehicles. So the subject site is just south of the frontage road on West Highway 13. It is a just above 3.5 acre site. The existing site, as you can see in the locator map here, is that 3 parcels. One, this northern larger parcel, has the existing building on it, and then 2 smaller that are currently just green or open space. So it is currently zoned B4, and the existing use on the property does include outdoor storage, and there is a roofing company that leases the building on the site. Shown here is an aerial photo of the same view of the site. It does access from the frontage road of Highway 13, and it does abut similar outdoor storage type uses, which you can see in the aerial of different vehicle. There's some associated repair businesses nearby and things like that. It does show to the south, there's just open kind of green area, and then south of the site that's owned by the applicant is a city park, so it's the Rudy Kramer Nature Preserve. So the proposal is for an expansion of the outdoor storage use, and as part of that, staff has recommended that we terminate the previous CUP approval, which was for kind of a wider variety that was amended over time of types of uses, whereas this outdoor storage approval would be very specific for the storage of commercial vehicles, and then the continued existence of the roofing building that does lease space in the building. So it's a PUD for that outdoor storage. There is a screening fence with slats, which is a conditional use under the city code included in the plan unit development. There would be a rezoning from B4 to that plan unit development, the adoption of the concept and development stage plan unit development, and then a preliminary and final plat of the property into one parcel. So shown here is the existing conditions survey and preliminary plat of the property. So as mentioned, it does have existing CUP approval for an outdoor storage lot. This dates back to 1989, and it has always been on this kind of northern portion of the lot near the existing building, which you can kind of see that's hashed here in the corner, really close to the property line. In 1999, the CUP for outdoor storage was actually amended for semi-trucks and trailers, which is the use that is proposed this evening. So that was used for a number of years, and the former owner has now sold to Ivy Brook Parking with Trevor, who you met at a recent planning commission meeting for a similar use. Right. So shown here is the final plat of the property. As part of the proposal, there's an additional 28 feet of right-of-way that is dedicated to the frontage road, about 7,500 square feet. So that does take some of that reduction in the lot size from 3.7 acres to 3.6, just a kind of a small adjustment there. The lot as a whole, as part of the plat, does conform to the B4 zoning standards for size and width, and they are dedicating the required drainage and utility easements. Oh, I do want to note that part of that right-of-way dedication, and I'll mention it later as well. We did receive comments from MnDOT about the possibility, there's an existing sidewalk in this general area on the frontage road, comments from MnDOT about making improvements to that, and then as part of the city's adopted multimodal plan, it does show kind of trail improvements on the south side of the frontage road. So staff requested the right-of-way, and the applicant chose to dedicate the right-of-way so that a new 10-foot by 2-minute trail could at some point be constructed as part of that multimodal plan implementation. And I'll point that out again later. So shown here is the demolition plan of the site. So the previous improvements as part of the 1999 CUP amendment for the semi-trucks and trailers, at that time, the property owner did make some improvements and actually installed these landscaping islands and a new fence around the perimeter of the building. That's what's proposed to be removed as part of this expansion of the outdoor storage area. So shown in some areas, you actually can see that the applicant is adding, in order to create this entrance to the site, the driveway entrance, they're adding green area and curbing to the site, but they are removing these buffers for similar to where the previous application was for semi-trucks and trailers to be parked for maybe residents of Burnsville that are truckers as part of their job and need a place to park their vehicles when they are not actively on the road. There's going to be a little bit more traffic in and out of the site, and so the existing buffers did not kind of work with that model of the more frequent truck in and out movement on the site. Oh, I also want to note that the applicant there are existing overstory trees on the site on this west side here, and within that small sliver of land that's also part of the subject site. So there is tree protection that's going to be installed around these trees that are next to the active work area on the property. So shown here is the paving and dimension plan. So as part of the proposal, the applicant is showing 71 trailer truck stalls, 18 bobcat stalls, and 9 9x18 stalls. So that does include what is the existing parking for the business that is within the existing building on the site. And then the arrow that's pointing here is pointing to show that there is a flush curve shown as a portion of the curbing around the site. Generally, the standard curb and gutter would be required surrounding the site, but surmountable curb can be permitted when approved by the city engineer when related to drainage, and it is only proposed in some areas just to the north of the proposed stormwater holding area. So just wanted to point that out. I also want to note, and they are harder to see on this plan, but you may be able to see it better in your packet, but there are existing light poles on the site at the north of the site, and then new light poles that are proposed to be installed in this location to the east of the property, in the lower corners, and then again over on the left here. I've accidentally covered it up by my arrow. But those would be exterior lighting for safety and for the use of the property that are proposed to be installed, and I'll mention that again in the deviation section. So shown here is the grading and erosion control plan. So again, just wanted to point out the stormwater improvements that are being installed on the site, as well as the applicant has labeled some of this area as snow storage for, during winter months. And then here is the landscape plan. Overall, on the site, of course, they are expanding the hard surface in order for the use to accommodate the semi-trucks and trailer type of outdoor storage. But they do, as part of their proposal, they do meet the landscaping installation requirements of the city code. So they are choosing to preserve the existing overstory full growth trees on the west side of the property and within the sliver of land that is part of the subject site. They are also proposing to install additional ornamental trees and evergreen trees in areas around the site, and particularly in the front area where they have that entrance into the property. They are proposing a couple of deviations related to the landscaping plan. So there will be a small deviation to 24.7% as opposed to 25% for overall green space. In their first draft of the plan prior to dedicating the right-of-way, they were showing, because they are installing this newer, where this is all just a pavement entrance into the site currently, they were showing kind of curbing it out to a formal entrance to the site in that green area. They were meeting that requirement prior to the right-of-way for the site. So staff is supportive of that deviation. It's small in nature, and they, because of the improvements that they have made in this area, they're exceeding the requirements for parking landscaping on the property. So staff is supportive of that deviation. There's an additional deviation for the existing condition here, which is that this is green area building perimeter landscaping. The building itself is not proposed to any changes. There is an existing tenant in the building. They will remain and continue to operate as normal while the rear of the site is utilized for this outdoor storage and truck parking area. So the existing building perimeter landscaping is also included as a deviation to the plan unit development. So the applicant has provided some sections which show the site view, what this may look like from neighboring properties and from the front right-of-way. So you can see in this section 1 view from neighboring properties. So if someone were to be standing on the side of the neighboring fences, they may see the top of the trucks, but generally the eye level, because of the fence, would go over the trucks which are parked there. Section view number 2 attempts to show if someone were standing at the right-of-way, what they would be able to see feasibly. While there is a screening fence to the front of the property, it does not continue the full perimeter of the front because there's that existing building with its parking area. So those, that cars and that customer service space would be visible from the front entrance. And then just due to heights of semi-trucks that may be parked on the property, those are visible beyond a screening fence, but any materials that may be stored, light materials, anything associated with the existing storage area of the roofing company would be screened by the building and by the fencing that they are replacing as part of the proposal. So benefits to the plan development, the project does result in the platting of the entire subject site, cleaning up that area into one lot, and that right-of-way will be formally dedicated to the north to help implement part of the multimodal plan by the city. The proposed green space, as mentioned, does exceed the 3% standard, and they've installed that additional line to enhance that entrance to the site rather than just the paved area in total. And then the subject site has been used for this proposed outdoor storage of trailers or commercial vehicles like this. It's an existing use. So the proposed upgrades to the site is a benefit to the area, new ownership. So deviations. So as mentioned, the request is for the outdoor storage lot for the commercial vehicles. This is, outdoor storage is a conditional use in the B4 zone. Staff is supportive of the request, and as well as the light materials. As mentioned, there's the roofing company that does currently occupy the space. To allow a screening fence with slats, which is allowed by conditional use permit, in this case, a plan unit development that staff supports. As mentioned, there is a request for 24.7 green space, as opposed to the 25% standard. The light poles that I mentioned that are to be installed around the property, light poles are considered accessory structures, and there's a requirement in the city code that they not exceed the height of the principal building. Proposed 30-foot light poles, which are needed for the use of the parking for commercial vehicles, that would be higher than the existing building that's on site, which is a one-story smaller, small building for their offices. To allow 23.5% building permit or landscaping as opposed to the 50% required, as mentioned, that's an existing condition on the site. And then the next four deviations are all existing conditions related to the location of the building. So the 0-foot parking setback related to the front and side is visible on the site plan and is talked a little bit about in the parking section of the ordinance, or of the report, which relates to the location of the building and its existing parking, which is not proposed to change, as well as the right-of-way dedication along the front and how that has impacted that. And then a 32.3 or 32 feet 3 inches front yard setback for the building, as opposed to the 40 foot required in the B4 zone, and then a 2.8 foot side yard setback for the building, as opposed to 20 feet on the side lot line, and that just has to deal with the existing conditions of the small building that is on the site. On the overall, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the application, subject to 12 conditions, which are outlined in this slide and in your background report. So the first condition is that the developer has applied for this plan unit development, and they consent and agree to the repeal of previous conditional use permits for the outdoor storage area. And then that condition number 2, which references the specific conditional use permit from 1989 and amendment from 1999. Condition number 3, that the use of surmountable curb is subject to the approval of the city engineer. Condition number 4 is a standard condition in our applications that a tree removal permit is required prior to work being conducted on the site. So that is related to the trees that were previously installed as screening trees for the previous improvements to the site in 1999. That the materials approved for storage are limited to the commercial vehicles, recreational vehicles, equipment, and light materials, and the roofing materials of the existing roofing tenant as part of those light materials. So the condition number 6, that they not exceed the height of the screening fence. Condition number 7 is that a sign permit shall be obtained prior to installation of any site signage. And number 8 relates to the location of the freestanding sign. Currently it's shown within a utility easement in the front, so the condition is that when it comes to sign permit stage and building permit, that we see a revised location of that freestanding sign, which meets setbacks as well as the location within the easement. And then number 9 is that an updated photometric plan be provided at the time of building permit, which shows us that the exterior lighting standards of the ordinance are met. So we do have the information that they're requesting new light poles, and we'd like to see that that light is not bleeding based on our exterior lighting zoning requirements. And that number 10, that the lighting cut sheets for more information of the fixtures which will be installed on the exterior, that they provide at the time of building permit. Engineering related conditions from that section of your report, that all outstanding memos from a previous engineering review memo be addressed to the satisfaction of the city engineer, and that a stormwater management agreement be executed and recorded prior to issuance of any building permits. So with that, this is a public hearing this evening, and I can stand for any questions if necessary, and then we do have the engineer from the applicant team is available in the audience if there are any specific questions related to any of those aspects.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. Very very thorough explanation. So appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions for city staff? Mr. Timmerman?
You know, like the last project, it's, that we've seen from this applicant, it seems pretty straightforward. The questions that I have are related to the 0-foot setbacks, and if we could see those from a
Yes.
aerial perspective, that would be helpful. And the question and concern that I have is especially on the south end, and I didn't see a south end 0-foot setback, but maybe it was considered side. My concern is regarding dumping on that south end that's going right towards the Rudy Kramer Preserve, or Nature Preserve.
Oh, okay. So I'll try to answer that in two parts then. So the 0-foot setback is the existing condition in this northwest corner of the site. So you can see the building itself is, it's about, well, it's 2.8 feet from the side property line, and then the north of where this red area is all paved currently. This entire area is paved, and it's actually paved all the way up to the frontage road. And before this application, there was no defined entrance into the site, so that is why the applicant is kind of installing this to frame it out. But the parking area in this location is not proposed, there are no proposed changes, and that is where the existing condition 0-foot setback is related to. And it's mentioned in the report that access onto the site and turning into the existing parking stalls, that is to remain as pavement in its existing condition. So that's that location. And then concern on the south end for impacts to the park. There's snow storage that's indicated to the north of and the west of their parking area, and in the northern part here. There is no reference to any outdoor storage or snow storage even in the southern portion. Where it does abut, there will be a fence in place, the full perimeter of the site. So the red area that you see is not the fence, but that is generally where it is to be located. So it's this line right here with the X's, and then the perimeter of the site all around, including their sliver of land that they have in this area, and then back up towards the building. So there is full fence screened with flat separation from the city's park property.
Okay, and those are solid curbs on the south side?
That's correct.
And it looks like a buffer before the fence, and it's only 2 vehicles that could be parked parallel to that nature preserve, so.
That's correct. And so the only area that they're showing this flush curbing is in this location here, with the implication that it is related to the stormwater retaining area.
Right. All right, that satisfies my question, thank you.
Commissioner Watt?
I have a question. So there's 3 parcels. One of the 3 parcels is that goofy little strip. You don't know, I'm just curious what the story is.
I would love to know.
Okay.
Best guess is that it's a remnant, as things were carved off around it. What we do know is that at some point, I believe the land was tax forfeiture and owned by Dakota County, and then at some point in the 80s to 90s, that was sold and became part of this lot, which had outdoor storage on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thanks.
Yes, you're welcome.
It does look like it's trying to help the applicant with their
With their
overall green space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great.
Which, I mean, which is fine,
Yeah.
I get it.
Here's what you got.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions, commissioners? Is that, the fence is 6 feet still, or is it gonna go up higher?
Yes, it's a 6-foot fence.
It's gonna be a 6-foot fence, okay. Well, I do know that Trevor Pune is online, and would appreciate if he wanted to speak with us at all. I remember last time, I believe he had some comments about our age. I believe that was brought up, and now he's asking
Now that
for,
you're reminding me.
yeah,
No go-karts this time.
right, exactly, no roller coasters, and he's asking us for 1/3% help on his green space. Maybe you'd like to explain.
When's,
He's going to be out of the country, and he's listening, but I did hear that he
Oh, okay, okay. Well, we'll let him go this time.
Please share our sentiment.
Well, we do appreciate, again, building in Burnsville, and great project. It looks like a beautiful, beautiful project going in. Anyway, this is a public hearing. It is 7:25, and I'd like to open up said public hearing. Any persons in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? And now, not a lot of people here. I don't believe anybody else is on Zoom. I'm gonna double check that, or on the phones. And that is a true statement. So I'm gonna round up again, 7:26, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Seeing nobody else coming, I would like to turn it back over to the commissioners and have any discussions, motions, or any other comments you'd like to make about the project we have before us. Commissioner Watt?
I'll just comment that it seems like a nice use for this property, a nice way to kind of clean up the site, and so I will be supportive of the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Watt. Anyone else? Commissioner Braddock?
My motion to approve.
You can make a motion to approve. Motion made by Commissioner Braddock on the floor. Commissioner Wallace?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace, second. With that, I will ask for everyone that approves, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, this will be on the consent agenda for our April 19th City Council meeting, 5:30 PM in these very chambers. Thank you, Ms. Madden, thank you for the applicant, and thank you for the engineer team for coming in. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move to number 5 on the agenda, and that is updates. And I'm going to turn to commissioners. Any updates, commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going to turn over to staff.
So tomorrow evening at the City Council work session, the first item on the agenda is the Planning and Land Use 101 kind of training refresher course that's being offered with the help of staff, but by one of our consulting planning firms, Stantec. Beth Elliott and Aaron Perdue from Stantec Consulting will be here tomorrow evening at 5:30 in City Council chambers. You are invited to attend. We're not structuring it like a formal, as we've done in the past, City Council Planning Commission joint work session. It is a City Council work session where there will be training in place, so you are free to attend in person if you would like, to watch on Zoom or on BCTV, or to watch it later on the city's website. But just so you know, that is being hosted by us tomorrow. And then your next Planning Commission meeting is April 5th at 6:30 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you. And I believe that is everything. I'm at number 6 on the agenda. Commissioner Wallace, you have something to say?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Motion by Commissioner Wallace, anyone seconds. Commissioner Watt?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Watt. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that is it. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great night.